Good afternoon, dear students. Previous class, we started to discuss about understanding law. Okay. So, in the previous session, we learned a lot of things about how the laws are made by and how it is going to be applicable for each and everyone in the same manner. See, we know very clearly that after gaining independence, so in our country we are following democratic system. So the basic principle of the democratic system is that equal opportunity, equal political rights, especially all are equal before the law. So regarding this statement, all are equal before the law. So we learned a lot of things with the example. See, let us discuss about how in ancient India, so they were followed and even they were actually tried to give shape and the conditions and all. See, dear students, in ancient India, so there were innumerable and often overlapping the local laws. So there were different communities enjoyed different degrees of autonomy. So we all knows that India it is one of the most diverse country. There we can see the existence of different socio-religious communities. So here, the different community peoples, so they were enjoyed the different autonomy in administering these laws. Especially, so they are won in some cases. The punishment that two persons received for the same crime varied depending on their caste background. So this is what the conditions which we can observe in the ancient India. Why? Because no, dear students, so the society and the system it is completely based on religion and caste. For the same crime, if the two persons, so sometimes they used to get the different kinds of punishment. So that is actually depend on the person who committed to the crime belongs to which community or caste background. So, especially dear students, the lower caste being more harshly penalized and also punished. This slowly began to change as this system of law began to further evolve during the colonial period. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸಮಾಜ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಭಾರತೀಯ ಸಮಾಜ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾತಿ ಅಥವಾ ವರ್ಗ ಆಧಾರಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಇದು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷರು ಭಾರತಕ್ಕೆ ಬರೋ ತನಕ ಅಥವಾ ಯುರೋಪಿಯನ್ನರ ಆಗಮನದ ತನಕ ಯಾವಾಗ ಯುರೋಪಿಯನ್ನರ ಆಗಮನ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಯಾವಾಗ ಸೊ ಭಾರತ ಉಪಖಂಡ ಕಲೋನಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಾವು ಆ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸಿ it is often believed that it was the British colonists, the rulers. So those were introduced the rule of law in India. So some of them often believed like this. ಸೊ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ರೂಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಾ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದವರು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಅದು colonialists. So the colonialists, so they were introduced the rule of law in India. But regarding this statement and regarding this opinion, the historians have disputed these claims on several grounds. So one was that the first, the colonial law was arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. And the second that was the Indian nationalists also they were played a vital role or a prominent role in the development of the legal sphere in the British India. ಸೊ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಸೊ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಪಾತ್ರ ಸೊ ಬಹಳ ಪ್ರಮುಖವಾದದ್ದು ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಸ್ಪಿಯರ್ ಇನ್ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. ಸೊ ಒನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದಿಸ್ arbitrariness and that continued to exist as part of a British law is the Sedition Act of 1870. ಸೊ ಸೆಡಿಷನ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ 1870 ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಲಾ ಅನ್ನ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ತರ್ತಾರೆ. See, the idea of sedition was very broadly understood within this act. It was very broadly understood within this act. So, according to this Sedition Act of 1870, any person protesting or criticizing the British government could be arrested without due trial. ವಿತೌಟ್ ರೀಸನ್ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಯಾರೇ ಆಗಲಿ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಕ್ರಿಟಿಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರೊಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರತಿಭಟಿಸಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಅವರನ್ನು ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಅಧಿಕಾರವನ್ನ ಈ ಸೆಡಿಷನ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ 1870 ಸೊ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಅಥವಾ ಭಾರತೀಯ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನೀಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ for this act, how the Indian nationalists and the freedom fighters they were reacting. See here, Indian nationalists began protesting and criticizing this arbitrary law, especially this arbitrary use of authority by the British people. So they were also began fighting for greater equality, and the Indian national leaders, so they wanted to change the idea of law from a set of rules that they were forced to obey by the British government. So actually they were forced here. The British government in India forced to obey the different set of rules, and these were all actually protested by, and they were demanded by and expected changes, all these things. Even it was including ideas of justice also. By the end of the 19th century, the Indian legal profession, so they were also began emerging and demanded respect in colonial courts. ಸೊ ಕೋರ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕಲೋನಿಯಲ್ ಕೋರ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದ್ರು, ಲಾಯರ್ಸ್, ಜಡ್ಜಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ಸ್, ಸೊ they were demanded respect in colonial courts, and also they began to use law to defend the legal rights of Indians. So Indian judges also began to play a greater role in making decisions were worked in the colonial courts. The Indian judges, so those Indian judges also began to play a greater role in making decisions. So therefore, dear students, there were several ways in which Indians played a major role in the evolution of the rule of law during the colonial period. See, with the adoption of the constitution, this document served as the foundation on which our representatives began making laws for the country. Of course, dear students, Parliament is a supreme law-making body of our country, but here they should not forget the constitution. So every year our representatives pass several new laws which were essential, and even there we can see the amendments also. For example, which were already studied, one of the act that is about the Hindu Succession Amendment Act of 1850. Sorry, Hindu Succession Amendment Act of 2005. I'm sorry students, I said 1850, sorry, 2005. See, according to this Hindu Succession Amendment Act of 2005, so according to this new law, sons, daughters and their mothers can get equal share of family property. Equal share of family property. ಸೊ ಆಸ್ತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿಯಿಂದ ಕುಟುಂಬದ ಆಸ್ತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸಹ ಸಮಪಾಲು ಅಥವಾ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಸನ್ಸ್, ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಡಾಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದೇರ್ ಮದರ್ಸ್, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೂ ಸಹ. ಸೊ ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ಲಿ ನ್ಯೂ ಲಾಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬಿನ್ ಎನಾಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಪೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. See, how do people come to think and propose that a new law is necessary? See, the laws, it's actually depend on the situation, the necessity, ಎಷ್ಟು ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ ಅದರ. So regarding this, we are going to learn in the next chapter. Okay. Now let us discuss about how do new laws come about. See, the parliament has an important role in making laws. So there are many ways through which this takes place, and it is often different groups in society that raise the need for a particular law. So an important role of parliament is to be sensitive to the problems faced by people. So just we'll read about a story to understand how issue of domestic violence was brought to the attention of parliament and the process adopted for this issue to become law. So that is about domestic violence. Domestic violence means, so generally it refers to the injury or harm or threat of injury or harm caused by an adult male, usually the husband against his wife. ಗಂಡ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ವಿಚಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಗಂಡ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಅತ್ತೆ ಸೊಸೆ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಅಥವಾ ಸೊಸೆ ಅತ್ತೆ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್ ನಡುವೆ ಬಡಿತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಹೊಡಿತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು, ಮಾನಸಿಕವಾಗಿ ದೈಹಿಕವಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ವರದಕ್ಷಿಣೆ ವಿಚಾರವಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆ ಇನ್ಯಾವುದೇ ಕ್ಷುಲ್ಲಕ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆಲ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಡೊಮೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್. ಸಿ here injury may be caused by physically beating up the woman or by emotionally abusing her also. So here the two kinds of domestic violence. One is about physically and then another one is about emotionally abusing her. See, abuse of the woman can include even verbal also, and also sexual, and even the economic abuse also. So these are all the different, the abuse which can include in this domestic violence. Verbal also, that is also mentally using a very harsh, bad words, scolding, and sexual harassment, and even the economic abuse also. See, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 extends the understanding of the term domestic to include all women who live or have lived together in a shared household with the male member who is perpetrating the violence. Are you getting these students? So here there is the example how the people, they felt so happy because of this, the act, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, when it was passed in 2005, how the women, they were received that and they were enjoyed. So in October 2006, there were the two women, just they were discussing in the, so please look your textbook page number 46 and 47. So there are the storyboards. So it was actually taken in the October 2006. Shazia, did you read today's newspaper? They are communicating, they are discussing like that. Did you read today's newspaper? So what was the headline of the newspaper? The newspaper that also there, that is about the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 passed. So this is all what the headline of the newspaper on October 2006. So Kusum, the another lady, who she was replied very happily like this, not just women. So violence-free homes will benefit everyone. It will be benefited everyone. Kusum, it's taken such a long time to get this law passed. It's taken a long time to pass this law. In fact, it began with establishing the need for a new law. Of course, it's a need in our society. It's a required in our country. Then the another one, the typical condition in the office, April 1991, in their office, just we can there are two women, those who are present to ask some suggestions. So the one of the ladies she asked, I need advice. She need advice. My husband beats me up. I have not told anyone so far. ನನಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರ ಕೈಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. I feel so ashamed. I can't go on like this anymore. But I have nowhere to go. And the same, the old age one, the lady, so she is also expressing her feelings. I am not being ill-treated by, sorry, I am being ill-treated by my son and daughter-in-law. ನನ್ನ ಮಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸೊಸೆ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ಸಾಕಾಗಿದೆ. They verbally abuse me. I have no access to my bank accounts. They may even throw me out. ನನ್ನ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕಿತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು, ಕೆಟ್ಟದಾಗಿ ಬೈದ್ರು, ನನ್ನ ಮನೆಯಿಂದ ಹೊರಗೆ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. The younger one, she, I do not want to go to the police, and I don't want to go to police station giving complaint and all. I just wanted to stop the violence. ನನಗೆ ಹಿಂಸೆ ನಿಂತರೆ ಸಾಕು. So the old age one, the respective lady, she is continues like this. I just don't want to be thrown out of the house. I am living in. ನಾನು ಹುಟ್ಟಿ ಬೆಳೆದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಮನೆ ಅದು. ಸೊ ಮನೆಯಿಂದ ಹೊರಗೆ ಹಾಕೋದು ನನಗೆ ಬೇಡ ಸಾಕು. Unfortunately, the existing law is a criminal one and does not offer these options. See, ಈ ವಿಚಾರಗಳೇನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, so this was not actually existing in that, does not offer these kinds of different options in that law. Throughout the 1990s, the needed for a new law was raised in a different forums. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಭೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮಾರಂಭಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇವುಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಶುರುವಾಯಿತು. We have heard testimonies of several women. We have seen that women want protection against being beaten, the right to continue living in a shared household, and often temporary relief. We need a new civil law to address this issue. This is about the public hearing. ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಸಭೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ವುಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಮಹಿಳಾ ಹಕ್ಕು ಆಯೋಗಗಳು, ಮಹಿಳಾ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳು, ಮಹಿಳಾ ಸಂಘಗಳು, ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸಹ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. In 1999, lawyers collective, a group of lawyers, law students and activists, after nationwide consultations, took the lead in drafting the domestic violence bill. So ಕೊನೆಗೆ in 1999 ಅಲ್ಲಿ lawyers collective, a group of lawyers, law students and activists, after nationwide consultations, took the lead in drafting the domestic violence bill, prevention and protection. This draft bill was widely circulated. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. The definition of domestic violence should include physical, economic, sexual and verbal and even emotional abuse also. So publicly ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಹರಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅಂತ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಓಪನ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಡೆಮೋಕ್ರಸಿ, ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ಆರ್ ಫ್ರೀ, all are have liberty, all are have freedom to discuss regarding anything also. Even they can shape the public opinions. So they were started to discuss in everywhere, in public places, in their organizations, women's clubs, newspapers, and even the different medias and all. See, throughout the countryside it was discussed. The law should cover any woman living within a shared domestic space. They should be protected from being evicted from the shared household. What about some monetary relief? ಹೀಗೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಚರ್ಚೆಗಳಾಗುತ್ತೆ. So meetings were held with the different organizations. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅರೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. The women's movement want a new law on domestic violence. The government should introduce it in parliament. ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಫೈನಲಿ ದ ಬಿಲ್ ವಾಸ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ 2002. ಸೊ ಕೊನೆಗೂ 1991ರಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರುವಾದಂಥ 91ರಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರುವಾದಂಥ ಈ ಒಂದು ಹೋರಾಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಸೊ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಬಿಲ್ ವಾಸ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ 2002. So this bill has none of what we have been suggesting. So when it was introduced in the parliament, so again there was the discussion, this bill has none of what we have been suggesting. ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೇನು, ಆದ್ರೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದೇನು, we must oppose the bill in its present form. There again. So let's have a press conference. We could also start an online petition. So ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ನಡೀತದೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು. Several women's organizations, National Commissions for Women, made submissions to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Esteemed members of the Parliamentary Standing Committee, the present bill must be changed. We do not agree with the definition of domestic violence being proposed. The law needs to provide for temporary custody of children. At a press news conference in October 2006, all those things were discussed. And what is this new law? This law is a first in recognizing a woman's right to violence-free home and provides a comprehensive definition of domestic violence. And this is a civil law aimed at providing a relief to millions of women, including wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters affected by violence in their homes. ಯಾವಾಗ ಅದು ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಸೊ in 2002, in the month of December, the standing committee submitted its recommendations to the Rajya Sabha, and these were also tabled in the Lok Sabha also, and the committee's report accepted most of the demands of the women's groups. Finally, a new bill was reintroduced in Parliament in 2005. So after being passed in both houses of Parliament, it was sent to the President for his assent. The Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act came into effect in 2006. So in this way, in the long term, so the Domestic Violence Act of 2005 passed and it was came into effect in 2006. The next class, so we are going to discuss about unpopular and controversial laws. Thank you. Have a nice day.